Alrighty, welcome back to the weight room. Thanks for joining us for another edition. Going to have a great guest on here in a few seconds. Just want to remind you before we start to go ahead and subscribe wherever you're listening, but especially please, if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Weight Room Podcast YouTube channel, would greatly be appreciated. And other than that, just get ready for a great episode. And I hope you enjoy the content. Let's get this thing started. Hey, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Good.
But man, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this stuff. I could talk about working out and fitness all day long. So
Absolutely. I feel you on that. If you just want to introduce yourself a little bit, kind of who you are, a little bit of your background, and we can jump off from there.
Hello, my name's Aaron Quinn. I am a firefighter in the city of Oakland. I've been a firefighter for 20 years. And throughout that time of 20 years, I've been passionately involved with fitness. I've been a coach for better half of 25 years. I started coaching when I was 13, when I was a lifeguard for the city of Oakland. And that passion has kind of married itself with firefighting. I started in 2007, becoming the head physical trainer for all new recruits in our academy. And I've trained over 300 new firefighters. I train them in mental, physical, spiritual health. And that's kind of me in a nutshell as far as fitness goes. Along my path, I've collected a few certifications that, are worth their weight in paper. A CrossFit level 1 certified, kettlebell certified, yoga, also Wim Hof level 2 instructor, a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and just passionate about fitness and learning new things.
You talk about worth its weight in paper, which, very, very good point there, because everybody out there seems like they have certifications, but I think the most important thing to look at when somebody, you're whether you're looking to hire somebody or just looking for advice, both kind of play a big part in the fitness and health world. But like I said, everybody has a certification. I think it's important to look at their experiences. Somebody like you who has so much background in so many different areas, I think is really cool, because you have that perspective of, going from something as what most people consider very calm and peaceful, something like yoga or, breathing or something, to, jujitsu, which is a lot of people think of as a bit more, physical. It's just cool to have that kind of background, as well as the acceptance of, I think, people in different worlds of fitness look at other things with maybe a little bit less of an importance, or less of a, this is good, this is going to work for you. It seems like you've kind of accepted several different realms and kind of tried to see where they take you, and that they can play a role, they can all play together.
Absolutely. I think kind of your point, one of the wonderful things is making sure that you have a coach or someone that you're interested in following that is a very diverse. If we're dogmatic in our training, then our results are going to be just as dogmatic. And so I think when we're looking at the aspect of what a human being is, we're walking dichotomies all across the board. And so to explore all those different avenues are super important. One of the things, I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Chek, you might be, but one of his famous sayings is there's no bad exercise. It's who's prescribed to and why it's being prescribed. And I think that's a wonderful view on things. We can talk about this system or that system, but at the end of the day, it comes to what resonates with you and what works for you with your goals and what your past is.
Yeah, absolutely. To that point, there's Olympic weightlifters who are, going to be doing different exercises and different training than somebody that is just looking to maybe just increase their mobility. It's just, how does it fit into, your world? How does it fit into what you need? So let's talk a little bit on how you got into sport, how you got into physical activity and exercise, and how that kind of progressed.
From a very early age, I just loved to work. My parents used to always joke when I was 2, I used to go out with my toy plastic shovel and dig holes in the dirt for fun. And I was very physical as a kid, kind of the running around, out jumping off things with all my friends. But my first kind of avenue into like organized sports was probably when I was 11. I was standing outside the public pool waiting to go because it's a hot day with your friends. And then this guy walks out, no idea who he was at the time. He happened to be the swim coach and probably one of my best coaches I ever had, looked at me and said, "Hey, you'd be a good swimmer. I need to get you in the pool. You're going to be on my swim team. And it was the first time that anyone that I didn't know believed in something that I could do just based on me. It wasn't like because your parents did this or this and that. It was just, hey, this is who you are. I don't know who you are, but I believe you can be great. And so that was kind of my first diving into the organized athletics fitness world, should I say. And he was a wonderful coach. Not only did he, like all wonderful coaches, they can blend life and life lessons into whatever they're coaching you. And he really saw life and swimming as one and the same. And he also told us the backstory of why he did things. This is why we're training this way. This is why we're training that way. This is why we're going to do this in training. And so it really infused in me a love for coaching and to see the progression that people can make through coaching. And that kind of started my career. And like I said, when I was 13, I started coaching the little Parks and Recs team during the summertime with little kids, 8-year-olds, and coached them through swimming and saw their progression. And that just kind of continued through my whole life. And just passionate about fitness. That led me to the fire service. In the fire service, I saw, at least in my department, a real lack of training and philosophy and ideology for that new firefighter coming in. When I came in, the physical fitness was just push-ups, pull-ups, running didn't matter, and there was no system to it. There was no periodization to it. There was no rhyme or reason. Some days we do nothing. Some days we go out, hey, you got an extra hour left in the end of the day. We're going to go run for an hour. And how fast? I don't know. Who's available? Okay, great. You go down and run with them. And so the people were getting hurt, not because, they weren't in shape per se, but because there really wasn't a system. And so I stepped in after I had about 5 years, I said 2007, and kind of created a system around what I believe produces a better quality firefighter recruit. And that's kind of been my fitness goal or focus for the last, 13 plus years.
I agree in the fact that a good coach, whether that be an individual coach or a team sport coach, can definitely play a really big role in especially when you're younger, shaping your mindset as far as, giving you those principles of hard work, discipline, doing what you got to do, but also instilling, because I think of the sporting world, even though a lot of people aren't growing up to be, professional athletes, I think it's such an important role that sports play, to the youth, because like I said, it instill those values. Potentially nowadays, with things becoming a little bit, maybe softer is the word, maybe it's not the word, but in sports, do you see any potential negatives coming from, how people are allowing their kids to be coached versus, how you may have been allowed to been coached, not necessarily in a harsher way, but in a more structured, in a more, competitive kind of way? Do you think that there's any kind of
For
negative
kids,
repercussions to that? Right. Yeah.
for
Nowadays
kids,
versus,
I have tons of opinions on youth sports. I think, where do I start? Um, I think the simplest one is we have to understand, first of all, that we're enabling our kid to live their dream and we're not trying to relive our dream. And that's a place for the parent to come from and to ask that question. That's the first place we need to come from. The second thing is we also need to realize that specialization, although that may produce a few products that are phenomenal, overall for the masses of people and kids, it's very detrimental. It's, part of our neurological development, whether it's for quote unquote book intelligence or movement intelligence, which I believe are all the same. The variety of different movements we can practice as a youth increases better neural connections. And not only that, there's tons and tons of studies from top surgeons showing that this over specialization in children's sports is producing all kinds of repetitive stress injuries that they didn't even see in adults. And so this is, this is an underlying problem. Again, I can go on forever about this. I think in youth sports, we need to encourage kids to play for a love and to enjoy what they're doing, to love the process of who they're becoming, through this avenue. That it's not about necessary success or winning a trophy. It's about who you're going to become and how you're going to get there, those lessons you're going to learn, and then really encourage them to get out there and try as many different sports as they can, and not to specialize. Those are probably some of my bigger points to make on youth athletics.
Being an exercise science major, we definitely went into, the overuse, just that whole kind of culture in general changing to more specialized. And it really, like you said, it's detrimental to the majority of kids because, like, there's not that many professional athletes out there when you're looking at the whole world of kids playing sports. So, even though you might be thinking, how can I help my kid get a scholarship, or how can I help my kid do this, that, and the other? You know, at a certain point, you have to sometimes step back and, as a parent, accept a couple facts. And I think one of those is, A, my kid's probably not LeBron James or Michael Jordan, and B, you know, sports can be a great way to get to college, but is it at the detriment of their future past college? It really is just kind of a slippery slope of, where do we draw the line between, being committed to it and then being overcommitted to a specific thing. I think that's a really kind of a
Absolutely.
slippery slope there.
And I think the ultimate goal should be to develop the person, or to, in this case, to develop the kid and not develop the athlete. There's, all kinds of documentation about the depression that Olympic athletes go through. There's a new documentary, The Weight of Gold, I think it's called, about how many of them commit suicide, how many think about committing suicide. It's a problem because their whole life, that's all they've ever done. They never developed who they were as an individual. Their only reference point of worth is through athletics. And we lose sight of the fact that working out, athletics, fitness, whatever it is, should be making us a better person first and foremost. And that is the ultimate goal. And whatever else comes after that is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think of, and it's not just the world of fitness, but especially I think in the world of fitness, sometimes you get lost, or some people get lost in just being about fitness, just being about their diet, and they lose aspects of being just a well-rounded kind of individual, having some other knowledge areas where they can, have a conversation about something else other than what are we going to, how are we going to do our next program kind of deal. And I can't remember who I was talking to now, but I was talking to somebody, and he was talking about just the people that come to him and that he trains around that are in their 40s and 50s, and they're still, sitting back thinking about high schools, thinking about how they could lift so much, and they're trying to get back to where they were, and that's all they did, and that's all they could know. And just to the, like you said, to the detriment of kind of their a person, and not to that fitness journey. So yeah, definitely it's in everything though. People get stuck in
Absolutely.
the worlds they live in.
Yep. That brings back to the very first point we talked about, variety, right?
Right.
Not being dogmatic.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, maybe you're in high school and you're thinking, maybe, what do I want to do? Was the fire service kind of on your radar at that point? How, like, what got you into, or at what point in your life did you start thinking, maybe I want to get into that?
So my dad was a firefighter in Oakland as well. So I grew up as a child in, I guess, a child in that world. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a firefighter. For all the great benefits, there are also a lot of negative benefits that I saw through my dad, through kids' eyes. And knowing that I wanted a family, I wasn't sure if that was the world I wanted to raise my kids in, so to speak. I think, going through athletics in high school, I was no superstar. I was solid. I was on varsity, but I wasn't like a dominant. I wasn't going to go to any 4 year school. That wasn't me. I played water polo and swam most of my life in high school, and I loved it, but that wasn't the end all and be all of what I was going to be able to do. So after high school, I kind of floundered for a few years, and then Oakland was giving a test. So the tests only come every 4 or 5 years for a test to be a firefighter, and thousands of people apply. And the test was coming up. My dad asked me. I said I didn't know. Then a friend of mine that I grew up with kind of pulled me aside and said, "This is what you need to do. You're meant to do this, and your dad's fate, your dad's lifestyle doesn't have to be yours." And that was probably that was really big impact. And he was right. I could choose my own path. And that's also part of my mission with the fitness stuff, welding, mental health, and spiritual health is, a lot of firefighters struggle with mental health, and it doesn't have to be as detrimental as some of the things I grew up with. So that's kind of my path out of high school to the fire service. To bring that kind of all together, looking back on it, I don't know if I really had a choice. Maybe it was just fated for me to be that way. I feel that way sometimes.
That's such a big point in time, right there around high school, right after college. A lot of people are thinking, what do I do? Because there's there's almost like this pressure to choose what we want to do with our whole lives, right then in that moment. And so many people just they know what they like to do, but they don't know what they want to do as a career. So I think for a lot of people who get into first responders, or get into doing something with the military, doing something, I think it's such a cool option, because it makes you, it pushes you into this huge role of responsibility. And it takes you from like this 16, 17, 18, 20 something year old kid, mostly in a lot of aspects, to having so much more responsibility. And it kind of like fills that gap within your life of having a meaning or a purpose, and it fills it very quickly. Whereas, a lot of people get out of high school or get out of college, and like you said, they kind of flounder, and they don't have, much of a real purpose. They're just kind of figuring it out. They're just trying to, do what they have to do to kind of get by, as far as, obviously getting through the world, but also getting through that stage of their life where it's just kind of a weird, wacky time for a lot of people. So, I think and it's not just those communities, but those communities right there definitely push you into, giving you that feeling of importance and of responsibility, and of giving back. And I think it's just such a cool thing, um, that not too many people get to experience, but I think it's really cool that people do get to experience that at such an early age.
Absolutely.
So when you kind of first got into the fire service, around 2002, you said, wasn't it?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
when you first got in, for those first 5 years before you started, doing the training, doing kind of more of what you're doing now, and obviously expanding on it since then. But did you feel like did you feel like you got into it knowing, or not necessarily got into it knowing, but right away did you feel like, hey, there's something missing here. There's something kind of that needs to be fixed here, or did that kind of
I
just.
don't know if I could. I don't know if I could say they needed to be fixed per se. When I came in, it was kind of this more of a crossover era. You still had Vietnam vets in, and guys who worked from the trades, and so exercise was kind of not looked at as important. And I learned a lot from that, because a lot of their philosophies of why I have been able to kind of marry with why fitness is important. Right. So it was lots of wisdom there. I don't think necessarily need to be fixed. It just needed to kind of be, judged, revamped, taking, taking the old traditions and old thought processes and kind of infusing a little bit of new knowledge into them, to create a more up to date product, so to speak.
Gotcha. How did that mindset kind of translate to other people? Was it received well at first, or was there, a bunch of pushback? How did your thoughts of kind of revamping and doing that kind of thing sit with other, people in the fire service?
Well, not going into too much of fire service, kind of internal culture. Um, Anything new is usually looked at as bad or wrong. So you have to fight that. Anytime someone who's young in their career tries to get involved with training or admin or help the department, the initial view is going to be that they're doing it to promote their company guy. So there's all kinds of that stuff you have to battle with. And then, of course, fitness and some of the stuff I talk about is uncomfortable. And so it takes time, but it's also evolved over the years. And one of the unique things of coaching in the aspect I do in the academy is if I say the sky is green, the sky is fucking green. So there's not a lot of argument. And so they're there, they're very fresh sponges. And so they're there, and there's not a debate amongst them. And at this point, over 13 years, I've trained over half our department. And so the vast majority of people at this point accept what I do and know what I do, and they back it. But at first it's always a rocky road at first, right?
It's kind of cool to be able to work with people from, in the beginning, because like you say, you're programming what they know, and of course you don't want to make them think exactly the way you think, but you do want to instill those values of, hey, this is why we do this now, and this is important. So yeah, it's really cool to get to work. It's almost like, you're working with like a newborn, teaching them how to walk. Hey, this is how we do it. We're not, they're not necessarily newborn, but you know what I'm saying. So
Absolutely.
It's definitely cool, because in other aspects of health and fitness and training, you're oftentimes getting somebody that has so many habits already built up that you have to kind of break down those old habits and um and reform those new ones. And it's pretty tough to do that with anything, regardless of if it's health or if it's training somebody on a new job. So
Well, we do the same thing, and people have bad habits, bad movement patterns. We have to try to fix those. I steer away from the word breakdown. I try to say we're gonna layer better patterns over, just from a neuro kind of learning standpoint. It's easier to modify an old pattern than it is to build a new one. And so if people can believe in their mind that I'm not tearing this down, I'm just gonna layer some modifications on this old pattern. In my experience, they will learn that quicker and more completely. So
gotcha.
that's not to get too far down that rabbit hole, but we can if you want to. But I struggle with the same stuff. I mean, in any given academy, there are about 30, let's say 30 recruits, and we can have people that played in the NFL, people that played for Major League Baseball, right along with somebody who really can't do a functional squat. And we have 16 to 20 weeks to get them to a place where they're ready to go. And we have to create a program that can reach and address that elite athlete with the guy who surfed the couch for a lot of his life. So there's a big challenge there.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about those weeks that you have these people. Kind of walk us through what that is, from beginning to end in a like I said, a kind of a broader way, but still
Yeah.
something to where somebody can kind of get the gist of it.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just back up. I have them for the physical fitness portion, which we do from 06:30 to about 07:30 or 7:45 in the morning, Monday through Friday. Doesn't matter, rain or shine. We're there Monday through Friday. Then after that, they have their academy that they're in, which is 8:00 to 5:30, 6:00, where they're learning fire ground evolutions. So my side is really only the fitness side, and that kind of gives me some particular leeways and ways to coach them. So the first thing I start with is the overarching philosophy that better people make better firefighters. And this is kind of what I learned, borrowed, gleamed from the book Legacy about the All Blacks. Talking about one of their major philosophies is better people make better rugby players. And so, I've always felt that, and it was just summed up very well in that book. And so I tell people from day one, I can't guarantee that you're gonna make it out of this academy, but what I'm going to work with is trying to make you a better person through the fitness that we do, through the movements we're going to learn, through the workouts we're doing. And in so, you will become a better firefighter and a better person out there. And so that's the number one place I start. And that's important because I want people to understand that what we do, in the gyms or on the mats, wherever, is really just a microcosm of what we're going to be out there in life. And I talk a lot about that. And so the training would, in the beginning, I start with Prehab Exercises, which is, all the stuff we know: shoulder mobility, shoulder strengthening, hip strengthening, knee strengthening, ankle, Achilles, places that we know we break, back strengthening, core stuff. I start with that stuff. before the injury ever happens. Dead bugs, bird dogs, side steps, step backs, pass throughs, all these different things, right? I start with that, and I start with yoga. And that's the first place we start. And that's day one. And then I build from there. I build in, kettlebells, we build in more fireground specific exercises, drags, hose pulls, ladder throws into our fitness program. And, throughout the evolution of those weeks, workouts get harder and harder. I talked about the philosophy of why we do things. Certain workouts, this is not about making you stronger. We're going to go way past the point of benefit physically. This is what we're trying to achieve mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This is why we're doing this workout, right? Or this workout, it's all around trying to learn how to control the breath and moderate the breath. This is how I need you to do it. This is how we're going to set it up. This is why it's important to work this way and this way and this way in these segments of the workout. If you don't, you're going to lose the benefit. Through this whole process, answering questions, talking to them, talk about supplementation, nutrition, diet. And then as we progress, we move through various movement patterns. I'm a huge proponent of Turkish get-ups. We get those in, all this deads and presses and Olympic lifts. Again, it's not a lot of time. So generally speaking, the power clean is about as far as we will get in Olympic movements. And then they are on their way. 16, 20 weeks is a lot less than people think it is. It moves pretty quickly.
Like you said, it sounds like it's a long time when you get working and especially when you're programming and you're like, okay, I want to achieve all this stuff. And then you gotta figure out how to squeeze it all in. It can definitely be very challenging, but something that I like what you said, being a better person makes you better at whatever. And I think it kind of goes back to the saying of, if you can, doing the small things, if I can trust you in the small things, I can trust you with anything. So, and it goes back to before, the point of or a sport for a kid is just, becoming a better person. And that kind of just keeps building throughout your whole life and everything you do. So, that's a very, I really like that point. I think that's something that I'm definitely going to take away from this podcast myself is that quote right there. And I haven't read that book yet, but I have heard of, the All Blacks and just the craziness of what, they achieved and that whole story.
So one of the things that dovetail kind of in that philosophy is we speak a lot about mental health. And one of the things I say is, how often do you go to a gym and you see people with the headphones on, or the music's angry, or it's blaring loud and they get angry. All the words I'm gonna lift this, and they're talking to themselves or their friend, and this is how they pump each other up. And these words matter. And if this is the energy that we're bringing into the workout, then what we're doing is we're training our psyche and our body that when we meet challenge, we meet it with anger and veracity. And so what's going to happen when you meet a challenging thing in life with your wife or your kids or on the job? You're programmed to meet that with veracity and anger. And so, while there is a place and time to utilize and harness that, but most of our workouts, we need to be using positive words for ourselves. We need to be thinking about what we're trying to achieve, who we're trying to become. We need to be thanking our bodies for the ability to be able to withstand this, right? So then when we met with these challenges, whether physically, emotionally, spiritually, we've pre-programmed our neurological system to meet them with either composure or grace or gratitude. And that's a huge different place to be. And again, we're training for our lives. We're not training to be some elite athlete, right? What we're training for is we're training to be better people and to be effective and be mentally and spiritually healthy. And that's how we need to approach these things. And that's a very different place than most firefighters and most guys who nor have ever trained. They have never heard this idea of philosophy. And so I harp on this. I ask them, every day, you need to write down, what are you trying to leave behind? Give me a piece of you that you're unhappy with, write it down. That's what you're trying to leave behind. And then give me a piece that you're trying to work towards, who you're trying to become. And that's inside you already. This workout's going to help bring that out.
Yeah, I really like that. I've never thought about that myself of, why we do that, why we get, listen to angry or loud music. And that's really, especially an important point, like you said, for people who are training for their lives. It definitely does, I guess, train your mind to, in the moment of struggle or of challenge, to go to that place. And you can't really think clearly in that place, I think. So you definitely need to be able to, when that challenge occurs, whether that be a fire or somebody, depends, I guess, which service you're in, but whatever the challenge may be, to be able to use the other side of the training too, not just the physical side, but the mental side. The learning what we do in certain situations is something I've never thought about.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason why we do that is because it works. It works. When you're angry, you get a flood of adrenaline, and you can lift more, you can push harder. But anger is an expensive fuel, and eventually, it's gonna run its toll on you. And so that's what we have to. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying that it's one of those things we have to understand and use it sparingly, um, and understand that what the consequences of using that are.
Right. Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like the Hawk. When you need to
Exactly.
turn into the Hawk, it's okay to do it, but if you turn into the Hawk at every situation, it's you're gonna be losing those battles. So yeah,
I
definitely.
You see that in jiu-jitsu. These big strong guys come in, and in their whole life they've been the animal in the gym, and they have this philosophy that I can lift more than you, and they can. They're stronger in the gym, but then all of a sudden they can't understand what's happening to them, and they get angry. And as soon as you see someone get angry, you've won, because now they're clouded and they make mistakes. And jiu-jitsu is really a journey of trying to manage that in a lot of ways, and understand that that's not the path.
So talk a little bit about if there is any difference. I mean, I think in a lot of ways the world of fitness has gotten bigger and gotten maybe a little smarter along the years, throughout the years, especially for those people who were actually in it. Now from the outside, there's definitely been more content, so it's been more truth and false going on. But do you see any difference now from the people coming in to the academy versus when you started?
Oh, for people coming into the academy?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the past, when my dad got hired, it was 100% this way. And when I got hired, it's maybe half half. But in the past, pretty much everyone became firefighters were either from the trades, so construction backgrounds, military, or ex athletes. And so everyone had an idea of what it meant to work and to push and to struggle and to achieve, um, and use their bodies for work. What we see nowadays, because a lot of places the requirements have gotten higher, is that you're getting a lot of people who are really only students. They've never really done anything physical. They start after high school. They take EMT, they take paramedic, which is a 2 or 3 year process, and then they take all these classes, but they've never really been a physical being, and so that's a challenge. Not saying we don't get the athletes, that we don't get the ex-military, we still get those guys, but they're not as big of a portion of what makes up the academy as what it used to be.
Gotcha. So it's kind of a bigger mental learning curve is kind of what you're saying with that.
Absolutely. And physical too.
Physical too. Yeah, because I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're coming
Both.
from sports or coming from the military, you're definitely, at least trained. Now the degree of training could be different, obviously, but you're at least, somewhat
Yeah.
coming into that mindset of, okay, I know, this is what it's like to work out and train and push my body. But yeah, definitely that makes sense. In my mind, it was almost like I was seeing it the other way, but it does make sense that, I mean, just simply we're becoming more of a sitting culture. So the people, you know, that the pool that you're grabbing from is going to be those people. So yeah, that definitely does make sense if you think about it from that aspect.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the live, surf, thrive, and what that
Sure.
is, and what that all does, and kind of the goals of that.
Yeah. So it was born out of what I do at the academy, of just people after the years asking me, like, what's after this? What's next? Um, and I don't own my own gym. I don't really have time to do that, unfortunately. But people ask me, and so eventually, the social media platform became the platform in which I continued to post my ideas, philosophies, workouts, what I do, supplements I take. nutrition stuff. Basically everything I teach the recruits in the academy about how to be a better, stronger firefighter and live a better, stronger life on duty and off duty. I've just put that into the social media, and it's a, slow organic process that's growing. It brought us together, which is awesome. Um, and that's kind of what Live Serve Thrive is now. I'm currently working on some online prehab exercises, things that, that again, really what I start with in the academy. I'm a firm believer in day one, we start with the most important things. And I learned that from Dan John, his philosophy of the warm up is the most important thing. Do what's most important in the warm up. Make the warm up your workout. Kind of his philosophy of that is, firefighters, we hurt our shoulders, backs, and knees, and Achilles. And so I've seen these injuries my entire career. And so my goal is to build a little program, hopefully get it out sooner rather than later, that we can give to firefighters to help them strengthen their bodies to prevent or lessen the degree of these injuries. But
Gotcha.
that's the current project, but it's, I'm kind of all over the map. I kind of tell everyone what I do, and my philosophy is about fitness.
That's pretty cool to have something like that out there, because I think there's so much good information out there, but a lot of it is just, it's kind of just out there. It's not collected. It's there for people to use. It's Googleable, if you will, but to have it kind of all together and available as like a package deal.
I also feel too that it's there's a place and purpose for all this, but there's too many people trying to tell firefighters or military vets or cops how they need to train and live who have never done our job. And that's important because they have insights that are important. But at the same time, at a certain point, you can't speak to my reality because you don't know my reality. And so to have someone who has walked in their shoes, and then also being able to synthesize some of the more complexities of what people are talking about in the world today of biohacking or fitness and working out, and also still being realistic about what we need to do as a job and how we need to train for that job, and trying to, marry those two together in a way that it produces a product is important, I think, to have that voice out there.
Whether that be, firefighting, or whether that be just trainers out there who have specific experiences, being a single mom or single dad or
Anything.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
when you can connect with somebody like that, it's so easy to have a more personal connection and to
Absolutely.
trust that person, and to, oh, they've been through this. I'm not gonna just come in here with the mindset of nobody gets my situation. It's, it's only me out here. I think it does bring another level of trust and confidence, and just a better overall experience.
Yeah.
So, what's your moving forward? What's your kind of aspirations with it?
My aspirations are to like I said, I want to help firefighters in the pain points that we have, the physical, mental, and emotional pain points, in the places where I've found success. I'm not saying that I don't fail, but I've found success in a few places, and to share those experiences and what I've done to find success. Ultimately, to grow that voice so more and more people can hear that. I think, you don't have to be a firefighter. There's value in lessons that I have learned for everyone, and to grow that beyond what it is today. I only have 10 years left active duty as a firefighter, and so that will end quickly. And at that point, if this turns into a full-time gig, that would be a great honor. I can't think of a better way to spend my retirement than, like you said, helping firefighters, live better lives. That would be and then anyone else, really, not just firefighter, anyone else who can find value in what I say, that'd be a great honor to be able to have that. And it's, grow it slowly. Hopefully it becomes that way. We'll see.
It's kind of cool to have those 10 years to build it up, to not be, okay, how can I make this grow as fast as possible kind of thing? Because I think when you have time, it grows more organically. You can, you can do more, with it without, obviously if you're not relying on it, you're not, which was a good and a bad thing. But like I said, I think it's more organic whenever you have that time to see, okay, let's see where this thing takes me, and obviously
Yeah.
having good intentions too with it is another great aspect to helping it
Well, I
grow.
think
But
a great thing for me too is, it's not my job. So I don't need to sell you any product. I don't need to sell you any system. I can speak out against systems that I believe are detrimental or positive. I mean, I don't need any sponsorship. So in some ways I feel really freed to really speak my truth, in a way that I think other people, can't sometimes.
that's kind of the cool thing about just having a podcast, or having, even just the ability to have a social media platform is kind of a cool thing. Something we kind of take for granted, but just being able to put out information like you do, and put out, um, stuff that you love, stuff that you believe in, is a pretty cool aspect. But yeah, definitely, looking forward to seeing that grow and seeing what it turns into, because kind of like you mentioned, you don't have to be a firefighter. You don't have to be a first responder to gain wisdom from other people's experiences. And listening to actually the Fireground Fitness podcast, it's one of my favorite podcasts. And I've learned so much, obviously, about the fire service just from listening to it, but just life lessons and wisdom, and, takeaways small things, even if it's just one phrase that I can take away from an episode, and, you know, put it into my own life. And that's kind of how I think about, any experience. It doesn't have to be a fitness related experience to get, something valuable from it. It doesn't have to be, directly relatable to your current situation to get something valuable from that. What kind of advice would you have for a man or a woman out there who wants to get into the fire service? Maybe they're sitting in maybe the same situation you were sitting in, either high school or right after high school, trying to figure out what's going on with their life. What kind of advice would you have for somebody?
Well, I think the simplest thing is, if you're truly feel called to get into the fire service, go by your local firehouse, ring the doorbell. It's that simple. I can't speak to every department in every country, in every state, in every city, but I would say 95%, or probably 99% of firehouses, if you ring the doorbell and say, I'm so and so, and I'm interested in becoming a firefighter, I don't know anything, help me, they will spend time out of their day to help you. That's, it's one of the things that's wonderful about the fire service, is that people ring our doorbells and ask us that question on a routine basis. And, you might take you a few firehouses to find the right person, but people will take you under their wing and they'll help you. Outside of that, I would say, do some soul searching, figure out, why you want to do it. If it's, for the IG, then it's never going to be a good career for you. This career is, at the end of the day, is a selfless career. There are no medals or roses at the end of the line for any of us. We're just a number as far as cities go. When we retire, we're replaced. You will 100% carry the scars of the calls you go on. Your family will be second. Your kids will be second. That's a reality in some respects. But with that being said, it's one of the few jobs that matters. It's one of the few jobs where you can make a difference. And it's one of the few jobs that's, I think, really pure, in that all we ask is that we can help you, and we'd ask for nothing in return. And that speaks to the very fabric of what the human nature and what humanity should be. And so, you have to take those two sides and figure out if that's what you want to do. It's very much so. We swear an oath, at least for sworn fire departments. We swear an oath, and the oath is to serve this people you don't know, the citizens, above and beyond all else. And there was a day where swearing oath meant something to people. People don't understand what that means, but that's what it means. And so, to take that for what it is, and then just study your ass off. It's totally achievable. You got to practice your interview skills. You got to practice your written test skills. You got to get yourself physically ready to go. All these things are achievable. None of it's like, you don't have to be a pro athlete to get there. Anyone, if they have desire, can push themselves to be in that place. You have to want it.
That's good. That's really thorough. And yeah, definitely, I completely agree with the service related aspect of that. It's certainly something that people call and you show up. So for people out there, appreciate those first responders. Don't take them for granted. Don't get mad at them. Appreciate the fact that we live somewhere where you can call a number and somebody shows up when when you need help. And I think that's such an undervalued and underappreciated aspect of where we live and how we live.
Yep.
Before we head out, if you want to just let people know where they can find you, and if they want to, benefit from your services, how they can do that as well.
Live, Serve, Thrive. And that's across YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not really on Facebook. Website, same, liveservethrive.com. You can find me there. Instagram is the best place to find me. I'm also on Clubhouse too. That's a whole nother discussion, but starting to grow that base too. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And much respect for what you do, and keep on doing it. And
thank you. Thank you.